Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined as always by Alex Lord. Baseball season is right around the corner. Within 6 weeks, we have opening day, and the Braves have reported to spring training. Even Marcell Ozuna, last person to report to camp. You got any words for that? What do you take into that, Marcell Ozuna? Let's get right into it. Marcell Ozuna, last Brave to report to spring training camp. Do you put any weight into that?
I don't personally, but I also, if I was in his position and I knew, the roster spot was up in the air, I'd probably show up, be the first one there. But also, everybody getting all upset about it, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I put absolutely no weight into it. I mean, listen, like some guys like to report to camp early, and I understand it makes everyone look like a grinder. And there's definitely some questions about Marcell Ozuna's professionalism. I don't think there's any doubt about that with the off the field issues. So I understand why people want to make this into a big deal. But I mean, if Ronald Acuna showed up the last person, listen, Brace Facebook would have a field day with that.
Yeah.
But the simple thing is, I don't put weight into Ronald Acuna being the first person there or the last person there. As long as he shows up on time, there's really no because, listen, these guys for the most part are working out somewhere. Like Charlie Morton might be the last pitcher to camp, but I guarantee you he's out there getting treatment by his own doctors. He's out there working his off-season regimen like anyone else. So I don't think there's really any benefit from being there early. So no, I don't put any weight into that. But he is going to be, I think. I know everyone wants to talk about Mike Soroka, but I think the biggest storyline of the offseason is Marcell Ozuna because I think there's a real chance. I mean, as Alex Anthopoulos says, it's going to be a meritocracy. Whether he is on the roster, he's going to have to earn a spot in spring training. That is not given to him, and there's some real competition. It's not ridiculous, but Kevin Pillar is a legitimate major leaguer. Eli White's a legitimate major leaguer. Sam Hilliard, who we're going to talk about this episode, legitimate major leaguer. So he's going to have to earn it. If he goes out there and is striking out, and more than anything, the eye test at the plate was just dismal last year. He was way off the sliders, way off anything off speed. But really, the only thing he hit was a fastball. If he goes out there and hits like that in spring training, he very easily might not be on the roster.
Yeah, with that being said, he could very easily bounce back. I mean, the dude just possesses unreal power. I mean, he's a monster of a human being. And like you said, all those guys will be competing. He's really just competing for that DH spot. I mean, I know we're going to talk about the inflammation in his elbow or his shoulder, wherever it was, affecting his defense. I don't care if he has a superhuman arm. The dude just sucks at defense regardless. It's a mobility thing. It's, the intangible part of the outfield. It's the jump. It's everything. It's not just his arm. But yeah, I mean, he really just needs to focus on it with his stick. I mean, that's the only way he impacts, makes an impact in 2023 is through that DH position.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could be a slightly below average defender at his best at this point in his career, which is what he was 2 years ago. I mean, I think that really is the interesting part. Can he get back to what he was in 2020? Because he is 32 years old, but it's not like 32 years old guys have not had success at the major league level. And the guy did hit 23 homers in 124 games last year. If he can play a little defense, he even serve as the DH. I mean, he could start 90% of games for the Braves this year if his bat and his offense comes back to what we're accustomed to when he was one of, an all-star caliber offensive player for most of his career before the domestic violence hit you in 2021. Some other interesting notes from the early part of spring training. We have Mike Soroka and Kyle Wright both entering the season with minor injuries. Kyle Wright has been dealing with a shoulder issue, which he received a cortisone shot on in January, I believe they reported. And he says he feels better than ever before, but he will be held out that first week of exhibition games at the very least. Mike Soroka tweaked his hamstring right before arriving to Northport, which I know it's not a big deal. It's not an arm. It's not his Achilles. But it just feels like with Mike Soroka, there's a new injury every time he steps onto the diamond. It's becoming the point where it's not just the back-to-back Achilles. It's the elbow inflammation. It's the shoulder inflammation. It's that tweaked hamstring here. Will this guy ever stay healthy enough to get back in a groove? Because if he's ever going to get back to where he was in 2019, pre-back-to-back Achilles injuries, you have to imagine he is going to have to be 100% healthy. And it just never seems like he's that.
Yeah, these injuries are wildly different. Even though they're both minor and both won't affect them long-term, Kyle Wright, this could be kind of seen as a good thing. I mean, he just posted a 20-plus win season. He had it was his breakout year, and his shoulder still wasn't 100%. I mean, that's a good thing. He's not going to miss any major time. He might miss the opening series against the Nationals, but that's it. But like you said, on the other hand, Soroka, it's just one thing after another. And this isn't, anything against him or, calling him, soft. I saw somebody say that the other day or today about him being soft, which is just crazy. Some guys just can't shake the injury bug. For whatever reason, some guys, I mean, we've seen it in countless sports where guys just have all the potential in the world, but injuries derail their career. It's a shame, but it's a reality.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only good thing, and we say this time and time again with Soroka, is he's only 25 years old, which is just incredible. I mean, the amount that he's been through, the success that he's had early on in his career, and you just hope he can stay healthy, because there's no doubt in my mind, if he does stay healthy, I don't think it's going to happen overnight that he's going to be, the guy who was an NL Cy Young candidate back in 2019. But I do think if he had a full season this season, even if he starts in Gwinnett, if he just stayed healthy for the full season, by the end of the year, that's going to be a weapon for the Braves. Because, and we're going to talk about Ian Anderson. I love Ian Anderson, but Ian Anderson he's basically been a pretty average pitcher. Soroka, when he's at his peak, is on another level. And if you throw him in the mix with Kyle Wright and Charlie Morton and Max Fried and Spencer Strider come the postseason, I know that's a long way away, but you only need 4 starters. That is an unbelievable group of 4 starters. There is not a 4 better starters in the league on any team that they can send out there. There just isn't, if Soroka's right. But the key is just staying healthy an entire season. So like from here to October, can he be healthy? Can he not avoid any arm injuries? Because every time he misses a little time and has to ramp back up his production and stuff like that, it's going to be that much harder to get back to that level.
Yeah, sometimes it might be a little confusing why these injuries are such a big deal, and particularly for starters. Relievers, it's not as big of a deal. They don't have to build up their stamina like these starters do. They got to go through their offseason program just to be able to get to 40, then 50, then 60, then 70, then 80, then 90, and then have nothing, or no restrictions. They can pitch as many pitches as they want. So it takes it's a process. And every time that, you take a step back, you can't throw or you can't start pitching full go. It just delays the inevitable, or delays Mike Soroka potentially getting back into the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, it's really, you think about it, let's say you miss a month of time. It's a month on top of a month of having to get back and stretch yourself out. So it's a 2-month injury. And listen, a hamstring, it's just a tweak, but you also have to be super careful with Soroka, because if that's a very, a kind of injury that easily, easily can come back and turn into something worse. So you have to be careful.
Soft tissues injuries are the worst. Across all sports, they're the worst, because they can be re-aggravated just like that.
Yeah. Well, another storyline of the first part of spring training is Ian Anderson has returned, and he is throwing a slider, which is something that I've talked about profusely. It's a must-add. He has to add something with horizontal movement. So far, it's been fastball, changeup, primarily with a curveball, and a curveball usually has some horizontal movement. It's just a 12-6 from Ian Anderson. So very little horizontal movement, and it's been getting killed. And batters have basically been able to get ahead in the count, sit on those pitches, know that they're coming in a vertical length, and just sit on those things. And that's why he got crushed. He got caught up to, the league has figured him out. He has to get a pitch with horizontal movement. He went to the Wake Forest pitching lab, one of the best in the country. I'm really excited to see him in spring training.
Yeah, and nobody's counting on him to be 1, 2, 3, or even 4. Back of the rotation guy. That's not a lot of pressure. And for a guy who's coming off a terrible season, mentally he's trying to get back into it. That's a great position to be in. There won't be any pressure. Nobody's going to be, upset if he messes up anyway, because there's 4 other guys waiting for his spot.
Yeah, and Ian Anderson, I think, even got quoted early on in this spring training saying, hey, in the long run, this could be something that's really good for my career. And if he can develop a third offering that can move horizontal, I guarantee you it'll be fantastic for his career, because that fastball changeup combination brought him a long way, but that slider could take him to the next level.